So Netflix has a new documentary series on hip-hop artists. Great production values, I must say. Even when they're interviewing these artists, the backdrops that they've set up, some of the most artistic looking backdrops. I'll throw up a photo. Really impressive. So it's a decent, very well put together documentary series. I wanted to talk about the Logic episode in particular, because I've known Logic's music for a while. I used to like Man of the Year. I love that song, used to listen to it over and over and over again. That was way before he blew up. So I've known Logic's music for a while. Didn't know a lot about him as a person. So it's very interesting to watch this episode, and I want to talk about some of the things that jumped out at me. So we learn a lot about his childhood. Really seemed like a tough childhood. Awful relationship with his mom. Talking about his mom using racial slurs against him. Sleep deprivation. Just horrible relationship with her. And complicated, I'll say, relationship with his dad. Talks about seeing his dad smoking crack at a very young age. So very, very tough childhood. And some interesting quotes he said. He says as a kid he used to think how nice it would be to be a dog in a rich family. Never heard anyone say anything quite like that before. I thought that was very interesting. And we get a quote early on that just shows the ambition and the confidence he has in himself. He says, look, I'm passionate, and that's why I will be one of the greatest entertainers of my generation. And debatable whether he is or not, but at the very least that shows just his drive and his ambitions and what he hopes to achieve in his life. And some of the interviews, I feel like we get a little glimpse into what it's like inside his head and his creative process, and because we see him just get so passionate. In one of the interviews he's talking about why he puts his everything into everything he does, and he says even this answer, I'm going on this little, I won't say tirade, but this little monologue for 5 minutes when I could just give you a one-word answer, and that's just indicative of how I put my all into everything. And we see in some of these answers just it's almost manic, just rapid fire talking, and it's almost like we see it's like one step away from his actual rapping and his actual flow. So you really do get a sense of just that creative passion that's not just confined to when he gets in the studio, just his day-to-day life and just how he lives. And you see the passion, you see the emotion too. At one point they're talking about Ellen calling him the voice of a generation and his Song of the Year nomination, and he starts crying, hopefully tears of joy, and he says, look, all my life I've worried that I would achieve success and then just feel empty, so to achieve success and actually just be happy, he says it's so powerful for him. And you see not just his emotion, but his fans. One of his fans comes up to the mic to ask a question and just can't even ask the question. Is just his voice is breaking. Eventually, all he can ask is, "Can I have a hug?" And Logic gives him a hug. It's a very sweet moment and so different than what you think of with hip hop. You think of some of the iconic hip hop figures. You wouldn't really think of their fans going to ask a question and breaking down sobbing at the mic. So very unique for an artist of his genre, I think. And maybe part of that is just the changing relationship fans have to artists now, their favorite artists. And he talks about being honest with his fans about his anxiety and his freakouts, panic attacks, and part of that is social media. And you think in the past it would be unheard of that you would know as a fan this much about the artists you love, and you think there was that element of mystique and mystery with everyone, even massive people like the Beatles. You wouldn't feel like on a daily basis you would know everything the person that you look up to is up to, and you can follow them and know. I guess it's definitely a filtered version of their life, but you really do feel like you have this relationship with the artists you love, and you really have this idea of who they are. And there's upsides and downsides to that, and it would be interesting. There was a movie a while back, Al Pacino movie called Simone, about an artist, and it was all about cultivating this mystique around her, and her whole thing was nobody knew. All they knew was the music. They knew nothing about who she was, for obvious reasons. I won't spoil the movie. So it'd be interesting to see if there'll ever be an artist that comes out that really tries to do the opposite and tries to do everything they can to not go on social media, not reveal details about their life, and really just let the music speak for themselves. Not themselves, itself. And I think we got a little peek, not just of the passion, but also when he's on the job and he's got to be the boss and he's got to crack down, how he can be that Steve Jobs perfectionist, that drill sergeant, and he says he'll screw up and they'll say, look, my bad. And he'll say, you're bad. Okay, why was it your bad? Let's make sure that never happens again. So you see how with certain kinds of art, and to be successful at a certain level, you've got to have that passion, you've got to have that be yourself, that putting yourself out there, but you also need to have these other qualities that sometimes can be a bit more abrasive, a bit more jarring, but sometimes it takes that to really achieve that level of success that Logic clearly has. All in all, really cool documentary series. Even if you're not a big fan of hip hop, all these artists, they're really successful. And a lot of things they say, it's about being a successful hip hop artist, but a lot of it's about success more broadly. So even if you have a dream, any kind of dream, and you want to know, well, what some people that are successful, what can they tell you about how they achieve success? And not everything's applicable to you. You know, people are very different, but there is a lot of wisdom to be gained. So can definitely recommend checking this one out.